Nich Patchwai Inknashwaneksha Corrine Miller. Good evening. My name is Corrine Miller. I apologize for not being able to join you in person, but I am also running for the Oregon State Senate District 30, and right now we are phone banking. So I really am here to talk about my support for Paige Hook. Paige Hook for State Representative of District 17. I was fortunate enough to go through the Emerge Oregon class of 2018, and I was in the same cohort as Paige. And I think initially my first impression of her was that she was really very positive and had a lot of positive energy and was always just really excited to be at the training and be engaged with what we were learning and what we were doing. And so that was always really refreshing to be around people who were so energized about the possibility and the networking and what the future could hold for organizing and getting elected. So the other thing though that was a huge impact on me on my personal life was I actually got pregnant and had my first child shortly after we graduated. And so there was a lot of the typical anxiety that comes with being a first-time mom, especially being somebody who's a community organizer and involved in politics, questioning my priorities, wondering if I was making mistakes in pursuing these, opportunities. And it was really important to me to be able to witness a lot of other classmates who were frankly showing me that you could put being mom first and still be a badass leader. And there was times where I remember her and others, pumping in class and just doing it. And so it will always be very valuable to me that I had those relationships and I had that experience showing me that sometimes too, this is why it's more important for us to organize, and this is why it's more important for us to fight for representation that will care truly about humans and the future and start solving issues right now. So that was a huge impact on that program that Paige specifically had on my personal life. Now, the other reason that I'm so passionate about Paige's campaign is just the reality that she also grew up in a rural community and her family has been here for several generations. And so I think sometimes there can be a disconnect with understanding the reality of the spectrum that we have in rural communities. And in the way that I've heard her talk about communities and organizing and wanting to be a leader in these communities, it's clear to me that she doesn't want to dominate others. She doesn't want to leave others out of the conversation, but she's also not going to shy away from these difficult conversations. For me, speaking for myself as an Indigenous woman who was born in Warm Springs and grew up here in Central Oregon and went through this local school district, I really now, having gone through college and gotten a degree in ethnic studies and served a term as a tribal leader and kind of done work on a state, regional, and national level, understand how when you have students going through school districts that only teach Western viewpoints, you are normalizing the institutional racism that exists in this state. And right now, it's very frustrating that we have elected officials, county commissioners, representatives, senators from our communities where there are Black, Indigenous people of color and whose families are under threat from our own systems, not only not making statements in solidarity with Black Lives Matter and not being clear about the facts that this state has very racist exclusionary policies that have made it very white intentionally, but that are also speaking out and saying things like the governor's health measures are oppressing them. This is completely inappropriate and it is dangerous. Learning about racism, learning about sexism, learning about the ways that we prioritize corporate rights over human rights is essential for a growth of our future in these communities. And anybody who is going in any other direction or prioritizing economic development or making excuses and voting against bills that will benefit rural Oregonians for party lines need to go. It's important that we understand that Paige's race and others' races in rural Oregon is not simply about getting elected and the kind of policy that we will pass to really strengthen rural Oregon communities, but it's also about having leaders who aren't going to gaslight their constituents. It's about having leaders who will make sure that other young women like me growing up in this district will never feel the way that I felt. I always knew racism was real, sexism was real. I experienced microaggressions from teachers, from coaches, from peers, from parents in the community, and there was not ways for me to be taught that this was racism, let alone ways for me to advocate for myself. And obviously the world is changing, and we now are seeing the youth are leading, they're organizing, they're marching, they're speaking out, and already the conversations are shifting from when I was younger. But we must keep going, and we must continue demanding that we have leadership like Paige, who will speak out and unpack these very complicated issues, and will do it in places that it's not easy. They will do it in places where we'll get yelled over, where we'll get name called, where they'll try and recall us, where we don't listen to science, where we don't look at history. But that is why it is so important that we support people like Paige, and we support progressive women running in rural districts. So I hope you all have a great rest of the party. And Paige, we're cheering you on from over here in our campaign and our race. And thank you, everybody. I hope you are staying safe.